Hello everybody. Well, I'm at HQ Aerobility today to interview yet another British aviation legend, Professor Mike Bagshaw. And there is a well-known saying that says, to err is to human. And this is a guy who knows quite a lot about that, because when I did my commercial pilot's license, it was the first year that the CAA introduced human factors training as a compulsory subject. I'm now going to talk to the guy that wrote the book. Well, Mike, we're sat in this wonderful Bulldog, and it's something we both have in common, this aircraft and the history of it. Tell me a little bit about this aircraft.
This aircraft was used as a basic trainer by the Royal Air Force from about 1973 to 2000. It was based with the Central Flying School at Cranwell, hence the blue band on the back, and at Topcliffe, where it was used to train Royal Air Force pilots, Royal Navy pilots primarily, and was also a branch of the Central Flying School.
It's extraordinary. I didn't realise our paths had crossed so closely, myself having been at Lincoln and Topcliffe. In fact, my first experience was on this. So let's go back in time together then. First of all, where did your inspiration to fly come from?
I sat on my father's knee in an Oster at the age of 4, and I got the bug then, and that's my earliest memory. And then later on, when I was about 10, I met a student undergoing training at the flying training school at Hallamington who was a doctor, and I noticed on his car he had a doctor's badge, so I asked him why, and he told me he was a doctor learning to fly to work in the profession of aviation medicine.
Well, I don't think you could have chosen two more rigorous professional ambitions. So how did you manage to balance medical training and flying training at the same time?
It was a struggle, and I first learnt to fly in 1965 with an RAF flying scholarship. I continued to fly while I was doing my A-levels, and I eventually went to medical school, and while at medical school in Cardiff I joined the University Air Squadron and had a wonderful time flying Chipmunks.
Yeah, indeed, didn't we all? You know, our generation benefited from that wonderful aircraft as well, and trained literally countless thousands and thousands. But it's still an interesting balance for you. I'm getting the feeling that maybe the piloting bit was a little bit ahead of the medical bit, am I right?
You're right, because although I picked up the trophies at the University Air Squadron for my flying skills, I came a cropper in my first major exams at medical school.
How did you balance then the two professions throughout your Royal Air Force career?
Right, well, I started off in the Royal Air Force qualifying as a Royal Air Force general practitioner, and then I went off to Cranwell to gain my wings to train. While I was at Cranwell training for my wings, I used to do a night on call as the station medical officer, which kept my hand in medically, and at weekends I would do a stint as doctor on call locally to keep my medical stuff going. And that was the pattern throughout my career, really. I had 16 wonderful years in the Royal Air Force. I flew the Hunter, the Jaguar. I was a flying instructor at Cranwell. I ended my career as a medical test pilot at Farnborough, and all through that time I kept my hand in, metaphorically, medically, by working part-time in the National Health Service.
Now tell me, it still is big business. I mean, it's sad in a way, but am I still right with the statistics? 70–75% of aircraft incidents are related to human factors?
That's what we're told, but actually, as chairman of the General Aviation Safety Council, I've become more and more convinced that it's 100%.
Wow.
Because if a wing falls off an aeroplane, somebody's made a mistake. If somebody flies into a mountain because of bad weather, somebody has erred. And it's an error doesn't necessarily mean pilot error. It's this chain of events joining together with a horrendous outcome.
It is indeed, but it's not always necessarily the pilot, is it?
No.
It could be engineering.
It could. As I say, if the wing falls off,
yeah.
It could be engineering, it could be air traffic control. There have been some tragedies as a result of air traffic control errors. You know, everyone involved in aviation is involved in the safety, and that's the bottom line.
Just before we cut on this, Mike, I've got to ask you, you've done all this so much, but you haven't stopped. What's next on your personal agenda?
I'm actually involved in setting up a brand new medical school in London.
Wow. Wow.
And I need to say that the ethos of this medical school will be human factors, where the trainee doctors will understand the principles of human factors throughout the practice of medicine. And that's a lesson that I've brought from aviation, and really we're tying up the knot.
That's absolutely fantastic. We'll save that for episode 4 of the Armchair Air Show. Professor Mike Bagshaw, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
It's been a pleasure, George. Good to talk. Thank you.